Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for my podcast guests to join us, and then we will get going. If anybody has any questions before we get started, um, feel free to start entering them into the chat. All right. While I wait for Jason and Chris with a K to join us, let me just go through a couple of quick notes. Right now, the Oklahoma recruiting class of 18 players um, is ranked by the three different services. Currently, right now, it's ranked 17th by Rivals. It is ranked 17th by On3 using their version of the composite. And it is ranked 16th by 247. So, that's pretty much putting OU in the top 20, but outside, obviously, of the top 10, where OU had been for the first 3 years of Brent Venables' era. They'd been in the top 10. They'd had top 10 recruiting classes. So this is obviously a dip. Part of that is just some of the verbals that they lost. Obviously, losing Cortez Mills today was bad. He was a top 100 ranked wide receiver on a couple of services, 4-star on several services. So losing him and losing an additional point value that hurt OU on the ranking system. And obviously right now, so for those that don't know, Rivals does like the top 20 players. You get the top 20 highest scores. So OU at 18 players is basically missing 2 player scores to go from there. So from that perspective, and then on 3, they rank your 18 best players. So hasn't really hurt OU as much on 3, but on 3 did have several players ranked lower than on other sites. Some players are higher, some players are lower. And 247 has kind of a weird algorithm where additional players don't add as much value. So don't add as much value. You don't get as much point value, but that thing tends to kick in around. That tends to kick in around 20 players or more. So obviously, the big news of the day is beyond signing day is that Jackson Arnold is entering the transfer portal. I don't know if there's a direct correlation between the fact that Ben Arbuckle has been in town all day, and I would presume on some level he has met with the quarterbacks on campus today. That's a guess, but I think it's a fairly obvious one. And if that discussion helped push over the top Jackson Arnold's thought that he needed to go into the portal. So from that perspective, I think it's probably for the best. On the various podcasts I've been doing on Horns Down with Jason and Chris, we talked about that. I think it's probably it's a divorce that probably is going to help both parties moving forward. From that perspective, so I think perhaps we have I think we got Kchris about to join. So let me add him to the stage. Kchris, did I catch you with the Central Eastern time thing?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Okay, in my note I said 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. So that's all right. No worries. Jason will be with us in just a moment. So, Kchris, do you? We were talking. I was just talking a little bit about Jackson Arnold announcement. He's going to be in the portal, and there's Mr. Jason joining us.
Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, guys, for joining me. It's my first time hosting a live stream, so I appreciate you guys working with me on that. And so I've got a question from, and I'll put it on the board here. We'll start off with our round table with some questions. So from recruiting. So Jason, I'll let you kind of go first. Who is the signee, do you think, that isn't getting enough attention?
Oh, you're going to make me go first on this?
You want me to start so you guys have a little time to get going?
Let me kind of look through it. That'd be good. So
All right. All right. Since it's my bread and butter, I think the signee who is not getting enough attention is Marcus James. I think the linebacker from Carl Albert is, I think he's 6'3", 6'4", 215, 220 pounds. He's had a sensational senior year. I think the Carl Albert guys are very hard to evaluate because they're so dominant in terms of what they do. So I think from that perspective, I think they're hard for colleges to evaluate because of, the fact they don't play full football games. They're blowing everyone out. So I think those guys haven't been really fairly evaluated. And I think Xavier Robinson shows that the Carl Albert guys are probably super talented. And from that perspective, I think Marcus James, if he stays at linebacker, I think he could be very, very good. If he outgrows linebacker, I think he could also be an exceptional defensive end edge rusher for OU. So I'm going to go with Marcus. I'm going to go with Marcus James as my answer. So Jason or Kchris, whichever one of you is ready to go next.
I'll go next. I like Marcus Wimberly a lot. Another safety guy, and I love what they're doing defensively, obviously, with what they've done. I think that's the big reason that you still have Brent Venables in charge of this football team, is because they are just taking a giant leap forward in what we're doing defensively around Norman. So that's probably the biggest one for me. I mean, he's a big hitter. He looks like he's going to be one of those guys that can come in and play right away. I mean, his athleticism was off the chart. And I think that I love headhunters, man. So I don't know that we talk about him quite a bit, or enough, I should say.
And Michigan really wanted him. So it's not like he's this completely underrated guy that was out there that no one wanted. So it's
right.
I think you're right. He's a little bit under the radar there. Kchris with the K, do you have your favorite Sooner signee who needs more attention?
Honestly, I think that you could go with Tristan Haynes simply because of the size. Talking to my uncle today, he was like, "Hey, he's another Gentry." He was like, "That's kind of the comp that you could give that kid, is that he could be another Gentry Williams." Another guy though that I want to point out, and people are talking about him simply because it was just kind of a splash signing. But people, if you go and watch the film, Jet New, dare I say, now this is a stretch. This is a stretch, people. This is me just gassing it up. Marcus Mariota is what I see when I watch the kid. I was like, he's highly accurate down the field. I'm not going to say that he's a super mobile guy, But when I watch him, I said, hey, he's a step ahead of a lot of quarterbacks that I see in college football right now, because when he is running, he's running and still looking for the pass, and he's still accurate on the run. When I was watching the kid can make every throw in the pocket that you want. I think that getting in there with Smitty, getting into that strength and conditioning program is only going to make him stronger. So I think his arm can get stronger. But I would say, man, if you left it up to me, I would say offensively it'd be that kid. This could be a Sam Bradford type pickup where you're just sitting there saying, hey, don't count that guy out. Like, yes, Jaden O'Neal will be on campus in 2026. Yes, Michael Hawkins should be the heir apparent to, whatever quarterback we're going to get, right? That's going to come in and replace J.A. But you also have to say that's a kid right there that I would not sleep on as far as coming in and being able to compete for the job, right? But I think Tristan Haynes defensively, Gentry. And we all love Gentry, especially a healthy Gentry.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we're at, where I'm at right now.
So Sooner Freak 29 asks, is anyone upset Jackson Arnold who's entered the portal? So we'll get the Jackson Arnold discussion out the way and just focus on the signing class here. So I'm going to say I'm not upset Jackson entered the portal.
Jason, are you?
No. Listen, I'm not. This is nothing against Jackson Arnold. Listen, I think that there's a lot of things that have contributed to Jackson and what's gone on with this offense as a whole this season. In the end, I don't think that he processes the information on the field, and when the play breaks down, he doesn't excel like you probably want him to at this point. And by all intents and purposes, I just don't think that Brent Venables has enough time to wait on him to become that guy. So if he's coming back and in turn, I think we talked about this the other day. If he was coming back and willing to battle for the job, but then fine. If he's able to win the job and all that stuff, great. But I think that in terms of what you have to expect was going to be happening moving forward, was that he's probably got a lot of opportunities out there. I mean, he's an Elite 11 winner, 5-star plus guy. There's a lot of people that are going to remember that, and they're going to think we can fix him and we can do it right away. Maybe they got a little bit more runway to do so with. I think you've got to hit the ground running this year on offense, and I just don't know that that's what would have happened with J.A.
You don't, for me, I just think that kind of reiterating what you said on a previous podcast that we did, Chris Mason. At the end of the day, everybody needs a new relationship and that whole affair, right? Like you need to be able to bridge out a little bit and just go and figure out what's best for you. And right now, the option Jackson Arnold is just not the guy here in Norman. Not to say that he can't be elsewhere. And I hope he lands at a great spot, whether that be Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, TCU, Baylor, wherever he's going to go. But I'm hopeful that he'll go somewhere that, obviously they believe in him, but they're going to want to make sure that they develop him as well.
All right.
But if I may just jump in, but I will say this right here, definitely not sad about it. Like, it is what it is. I think the kid still has a high upside, but right now I'm just at a point where we don't have time, right? We don't have time to try to figure this out and go through those growing pains with him. BV hired the wrong guy with Seth Luttrell, but he also tried to hire a guy to keep some type of continuity here for Jackson. So regardless of how everybody wants to spin it, yes, Jackson didn't have the most help from Seth Luttrell. It was damn near a Bill O'Brien-esque type hire as far as not helping your quarterback. But regardless, BV already almost damn near set the program behind by trying to cater to
One
Jacksonville by putting everything around him. So it's one of those things where it just didn't work out. It sucks. You root for the kid. The kid was a 5-star, all the rest of this stuff. The kid still has a lot of football left in his life. And I hope his story is some type of revenge story or whatever. But like I said, right now, I'm all for BV. I think BV is our guy.
Yeah.
We are in the NFL model of college football now that is in the early stages, the beta stages. So this,
I think that's good.
Yeah, believe it or not, people, this is where the game is headed.
Yeah, and seeing what we saw from Joe C yesterday in that post that he was talking about, the changes that are coming to the athletic department and to really having a full on football operations department, more or less. It just tells you more that this is a business, and this is for better or worse, man, this is a results-based business. If you want to be at the top of college football in the SEC, you do what you got to do. And he hasn't proven that he is the guy for this program moving forward. You know, I think he made the decision himself, though. Nobody made him leave. So it is what it is.
All right, to swing back to the recruiting class a little bit, because I think we have killed the Arnold story on a number of podcasts, and it you know, it is what it is at this point. I think you're right, Jason. He wasn't pushed out the door. That was his decision. So, all right. But of the guys who signed today, which freshman do you think has the biggest impact year one? I can go again if you guys need a minute to think about that.
You know what? I think I may steal yours. I'm going to say Manny Choice.
Okay.
I think Manny Choice can find his way on the field. I think he could. Yeah. That's who I'll go with.
So you like the big receiver? You think the big receiver is, depending upon who comes back from the injury for and what goes on, but you think Manny Choice, Emmett Jones, the big receiver whisperer, at least we saw that year one. So you think Manny Choice, who is enrolling early. So just to recap for everyone, 17 out of the 18 guys are enrolling early. The only guy not enrolling early is CJ Nixon, because he wants to win a state championship in basketball. So you like Manuel Choice, okay? Jason, who would you like? You've got the rest of the lineup to choose, or you can go with Manny Choice too. But I know you're not going to just patently agree with Kchris with a K there.
I just couldn't do it. That would be like, that would be uncivilized if we did that. So I'm kind of torn between a couple of guys, but I got to tell you, one of the guys that I keep coming back to that I enjoy, I love watching this kid's freaking film, is a couple of them, but really Elijah Thomas, man, the wide receiver. This is another one of these speed guys that can just, and I love these Oklahoma kids that are they're a little undervalued. It feels like, I know he's a little higher up the rankings for most of the recruiting stuff, but a guy this is an electric guy. I feel like it may be that kind of guy that you talked about it, I think, the other day, that there's certain guys right now you're looking at Oklahoma for immediate impact guys, and I think that he's one of those receivers that you could see doing that, and why you may want to only take a couple of guys from the high school ranks, because those guys are guys that can make an immediate impact, and then we want to go backfill with guys that have already made an impact in college football. So I think Elijah has shown playing at Chickasaw that he's that guy. I think a pretty good chance that he may show up and do just that. What do they got him ranked? I think On Three had him around 150 and then was 247, and Rivals had him a little lower, I think it feels like. But
yeah, they haven't. To me, he's not ranked as high as he should be, just because I think he's just a sensational player. In-state wide receivers tend to be. He's 103 on the composite. He's 103. Sorry, on three. That's where they like him. Overall, he's about 150. I think he should be in the top 100, top 75. His stats this year were ridiculous. He had like 1,800 yards receiving and like 2,400 total yards and touchdowns receiving, rushing. returns, punt, kickoff,
He does a little everything.
pick sixes, the whole 9 yards. So I think
I saw him
overall,
make a block, and so I think it was a block that he made or something, just like a blindside block on somebody to spring somebody else loose. And I think it was like a news report or something from local television or something. But I was like, oh, so he doesn't mind getting physical and that kind of stuff. He just seems like a dog, and I think that's kind of what you need here right now is guys that are just going to go out there and play like a dog. And whether they're receivers or whoever they may be, I love physical players. I think that's what Oklahoma's lacked for a long time is serious physicality on both sides of the ball. And so yeah, he definitely stands out to me. Everything I've seen from him, he definitely stands out.
Well, since you guys chose both of the receivers, I'm going to go with, I think cornerback is one of our weaker spots. So I'm going to go with Cortland Guillory, that Cortland Guillory is in the cornerback rotation. He's hitting folks. He's covering folks. And if Gentry can't make it back and Jacoby Johnson or, presuming Vickers stays around, neither of those guys are able to step up, I think Cortland Guillory has a path to early playing time. And based upon his senior year where he's just been unbelievable and he's just if you think about a natural complement to Eli Bowen, Cortland Guillory, 6'1", 200, 6 foot, 195 is kind of an obvious. It just seems like that's an obvious kind of pairing to me. And he's done so well in the Houston area. He won Player of the Year title. Right. He's had such a great year. He's enrolling early.
It seems like he put 20, 25 pounds at least on just since the last year too. So, I mean, that shows that he's continuing to kind of grow. I like him, man, too. Yeah, that's another stud.
Yeah. So I think that's who I think I would probably go with. If you were asked a slightly different question, which recruit do you think will have the biggest career at OU? Which one do you think you would choose?
Amarian Robertson.
Okay.
He's a guy that I feel talking to my uncle's like, hey, that's an SEC guy. He said that's an SEC type DB right there. When I did a little bit of research for myself, and I thought, hey, that guy could be special. He could be special. He could be better than Billy, to be honest with you. Like that, he has high upside, high potential. He's a guy that could be locked down back there in that secondary.
Okay. Huh. I like it. I like that one. Let me think. Ask the question again. I want to make sure.
Sure. So we did like the guy that we think has the first year impact, but I'm talking like when we review it, the class 4 years from now, which player do you think you say, wow, that's the guy that had the biggest impact at Oklahoma? Not necessarily the most NFL potential. We'll kind of get to those sort of questions later, but who is the guy that has the biggest impact at Oklahoma?
Man, I don't know, man. And I think we've got some really good guys here in this edge position, but I really like CJ Nixon too. And I mean, he just seems like he's I don't know. I keep going back to these Oklahoma kids, but something about the way that these guys, they all seem to have that same trait in them, that physicality, but this guy is lightning fast off the edge. Big, strong. I think there's a reason why you've got him in a lot of top 100s, as far as overall. And he's what is he? He's a 4-star in pretty much every one of them, but I don't even care about that. I just think that you watch his film and he just blows off the line and seems to be a pain in everybody's ass to be able to, for their tackle to even stay in front of him at all. And I think that when you pair him up with, the guys that look, I think a lot of the guys that we didn't see a whole lot of this year, the freshman kids, the Danny Okoyes of the world, and then even like Nigel Smith, they're going to make an impact here in the next couple of years. But I think CJ Nixon's one of those guys for sure. I just think that the power line continues to get better and better, it feels like to me.
Yeah, so Kchris, I compared to Marion Robinson in my write-up on my Patreon site. Just a quick pitch for the Patreon site. I compared it to Billy Bowman, so I think you are like right on target there. I think he has Billy Bowman type, Thorpe semifinalist kind of potential. And the scary thing I think about CJ Nixon is his dad is 6'9", like 270, 280. I mean, his dad's huge. So really, I mean, there's a photo that Miguel Chavis posted out on reposted on Twitter today, and Nixon's taller than Miguel Chavis. You can clearly see that he is.
Wow.
Miguel Chavis is a legit 6'5". That's what he was measured at the NFL Combine.
Right.
So CJ Nixon is 6'6". With the way he moves and his wingspan is ridiculous. So I think once he gets in a weight room and maybe concentrates a little bit, maybe once he focuses maybe a little bit more on football, he may get a later start because he's going to play basketball. But I think you're right. His ceiling is as high as anybody in the class, and that's kind of a ridiculous statement considering the name. I'm going to mention him today. Get the first reference out. I think it's Michael Fasusi. I think he ends up being a 2-year starter at tackle, and he's our next first round. He's both an all SEC tackle, and he's our next first round draft pick offensive tackle. Yeah, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cheat and use the Fasusi card. I basically give each of us a one-time Fasusi card usage because it's kind of the easiest answer, highest rated. I mean, he's a top 10 player nationally. He's a number 2 offensive tackle in the country. I'm cheating here by you shouldn't really let me get away with using that, but that's my only time I'm going to use like Fasusi for like one of these questions. So,
there's a small chorus who think that Foji may end up being the best out of this class as far as offensive line.
I was fixing to ask the question is how much difference is there in him and Ryan Foji though? Because I can't see a huge difference whenever I watch the film with these two.
Well, Foji, I saw an update that Foji says he's up to 305.
Uh-huh.
And the big knock on Foji initially when he verbaled was like, well, he's like 265, 270. It's gonna take a little while for him to put on some weight to be, that was like his development question mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the kid's 305. So, and he's enrolling early. Along with Michael, they're both enrolling early. So I think it's a strong possibility they're both 320 by the time spring ball rolls around. So, yeah, Chris, I think I just went with Fasusi because I think there's a path to right tackle with Fasusi that's faster than Foji behind Logan Howland at left tackle. So I think that's why I went that way. But if you told me that Ryan Foji ended up as a higher draft pick than Michael Fasusi, that's not like I don't think that's like some super hot take. I mean, I think it's really a position when you look at it when Gabe Eichert, who, love him or hate him, it certainly plays O-line and knows the O-line position. When he says he has the best pro set stance and get off of any guy he's watched in like the last, 4 or 5 years, you got to give that respect, right? So I think, I like what Logan Howland is putting out right now. I know obviously, they all had they had a tough day in Baton Rouge, but everybody did. I think Logan Howland with a full off season with Bill working with him and all that, I think he's going to look very solid at left tackle for the Sooners next fall. Whereas I think there's a path at right tackle faster for Fasusi to get on the field. And I think Fasusi's your right tackle, and I think Foji is your left, just based upon the footage I've seen.
Okay. And I would just push back a little bit to say, let's not forget about Isaiah Autry-Dent either. I mean, he's a guy that's
No.
220 or 320 at this point, and every bit looks the part. I think he was a little undervalued coming out of high school as well. But it feels like these guys are all kind of just to where you're going to have a two deep that is going to be really good, of young guys. It just feels like you're going to have a two deep at a lot of these positions that's going to be really good.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Jason. Chris Mason, we talked about that an awful lot on and off screen. Got to give Bill his credit, man. Bill brought in yet again another really good class, and you could argue and say this class is better and more important than the one that we just had. Building that depth, all those different things. You just have to develop these guys now. I mean, it's about as simple as that. This is going to be a talented group to the point where you should be good if everything goes right next year, and we're at the very least a 9-win team. Your future is looking really bright, and I think that's the thing is that kind of outside of center, I think and I'll be honest with you, I think outside of center, I think most of every spot on that offensive line is going to be up for grabs next year. Simply because,
too, huh?
Yeah, you would love to say, yeah, Jake Taylor or Jake Sexton, you could put them on the right side. They have to be healthy. Hatchett is coming back, has to be healthy. Akakume, Isaiah Autry-Dent, Eugene Brooks,
Josh Iasosa. I mean,
yes.
All of a sudden we go from no names to I mean, I was watching Hollenbeck senior year footage today. My God, that guy hates people on defense. I mean, he is a massive. He's a I mean, I haven't always put him in the same level as because I love Afalava. Because Afalava, really looks like I think Afalava would block his grandmother into the end zone for a touchdown.
I think
that's the way. I think he would. And the two tackles are the best. I don't think it's a bold statement too bold a statement to say they're the best looking offensive tackles we've signed in the last 10 years. I think Foji and Fasusi. I mean, I think they're the best looking. But Hollenbeck, I mean, there was a play where he beat up 3 guys, and it was like, and he was looking for a fourth. I mean, he's like, and there was a guy who kind of speed rushed him, and he got annoyed by it, and like. He moved. He made sure to come back to him, and he just blitzed the guy. I mean, he just leveled the guy because he was kind of mad.
Yeah.
He's mad. So I think Hollenbeck at center that could be very interesting. But I think you're right that if you're Bill, after all the things that gone on, you gonna like no one has a starting job. I've got competition. Go. There's meat. There's meat in the competition pit. Go get it, guys. And I've said on our pods before, Chris and Jason, that tracking things for 2026, Bill has a 2026 O-line. Like, he's got about 8 to 10 guys where OU is either number 1 or in the top 3. So he's got a 26 O-line ready to go. The two Polynesian kids, Toa Katoa and Primus Pulite, both love OU. Noah Best from Midlothian is your center, kind of guard tackle combo guy. So I think it's very, very interesting. We got a good question here from Stubby 1085. Stubby. So are you guys worried about the small class? Do you think OU needs to do anything about that in January high school recruiting?
Not as far as high school recruiting. I think that there's a reason why they only got 18 players. We've talked about this a lot lately. No, I'm not worried about it. I think they're saving some spots for impact guys. You got to get to the other part of it is that you have to get down to your roster limits. They're coming into this roster limit stuff. Again, I just said it a few minutes ago, but if you think about it, you're now running this program like NFL Light. And that's the direction that you have to go in. So you have to leave some room for your quote unquote free agents right here. And that's the portal guys. So I think that they're looking to keep some spots open for impact players that could come from somewhere else. No, I don't. And I would also agree with the second part of what he was saying. The online class might be the best that Bill's ever had. So, when you look at it from top to bottom, you're talking about Holenbeck and I mean, Darius Afalava. You talk about a guy that looks like he likes to get into fights. I mean, he just seems like one of those guys. So, love having these guys on the O-line. I don't know that you need to go. We've talked about that a lot before too, is that what do you really find in the portal when it comes to offensive linemen? It's not usually always a great thing, right? So I feel like I do feel like that you could probably end up with a lot of guys out of the portal. What we got here?
We got some
retirement
weird,
home?
We got some weird.
Kill the spammer, man. Kill the spammer.
All right. Okay. Do I have to do that? How do I do that here? Do you know? Sorry. Hit me up in private chat.
Man.
There you go.
All right. Thank you.
So what I was gonna say is that people, I think, coming into the season a lot, there was a little bit of a talk, and I'm sorry, people, my kid will not stop screaming, but there was a little bit of talk about you not taking a big class this year, though. Like I heard that in several places. Now, obviously, you want to go out there and get, 25, 26 guys, and I think that you can get back to that eventually. But dare I say the Tebow words, but you want to probably, especially now in this day and age, you probably want to keep at least 6 to 8 scholarships available for portal guys, and maybe you're going out there and trying to get more to bring in. So I don't know. I think what you went and got, though, was a class just to add on to what you have, because what you have here now, and BV said it too, we played a crap ton of freshmen and they played a crap ton of minutes this year, whether or not they were redshirt or just a straight up freshman. So I think people need to, step back with like a comment like this and just realize, coming to the SEC, we all said, hey, we're going to be talented. We're just going to be really young too. Simply because, you had Danny. Yes, you had Billy. Yes, you had Ethan Downs. R. Mason Thomas was an upperclassman, and you sprinkle in some of those guys. But Eli Bone is a freshman, right? There was a lot of freshmen who got a lot of playing time. You're hoping Boganowski, Jaden Hardy, they could build off of the time that they got this year and become factors, right? Sammy O, his first year playing. So, I mean, you had a lot of young guys playing, but you're going to be talented. But on top of that, you're just adding on to that. So I think this was a year where you could be a little bit more selective. But considering that fact right there, you also have to couple it with the fact you got to hit the portal and go get some difference makers this year.
All right, let me just give you one last sort of caveat to that. Let's say you have 10 portal exits and you add 10 portal players, and you're still under your 85 cap when that happens. Okay. Do you try and then pick up a couple of players in January high school recruiting? Would you then do that? And let's say they hit. When we look at those portal guys, we're like, wow, okay, they've hit the needs we think they needed to hit. Would you then consider picking up some high school guys in January on either linebacker or edge? I'm not sure you find that much value at defensive tackle, but you found R. Mason Thomas and Grayson Holton in January recruiting, so it's
Sure.
more than possible to find really good players. So would you do that then?
I think absolutely. And especially, I think with the way things are going, there's guys that are slipping through the cracks all the time. You just don't know. I mean, we're talking about a guy that goes to the high school I went to with Marcus Dent. He's trying to help get him into like a JUCO. This is a 6'4" edge guy that's been an all-state guy 3 years. Nobody knows him. There's guys out there like that. There's guys out there like that. So I think that you kind of have to look and see whatever. But I do think that you have to be active in the portal and go after some of these guys that can make an immediate impact. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you're probably going to lose some guys anyway, like as you said. If you've got spots there, it never really hurts to continue to build up your foundation, which I think is always got to be high school recruiting. I think it always has to be high school recruiting is that foundation of and development stuff. That's where you really long term, that's what you're looking for, right? I think that in this case, we're looking at it as that he needs to win now. So you're kind of really wanting to be maybe a little more aggressive in the portal. But I still think I don't think that Oklahoma's as far away from winning this year as a lot of people seem to think, right? You know?
Okay. Going to spin this. You trying to keep everything positive. It's signing day. It's a happy day.
Yeah.
But is there one recruit that you think is maybe a little overrated and you're worried that maybe this guy's not going to have the impact at OU that you thought?
Shield Knight. I mean, that's kind of the one question right there that you're looking at is that we Marcus Harris, right? I'm like, maybe if it was me, maybe that's a scholarship for Marcus Harris opposed to Shield Knight. That's just me though. Like just the film has not been there for me. That's just kind of where I'm at. Maybe that's just kind of, still coming off that injury, all the rest of those things, but that is probably the one that I would say just a little bit questionable on that. Okay.
And even today, Brent was mentioning the fact that Shield Knight can play tight end. So that's already in there. I think he could be a good H-back fullback for OU, put 20 pounds in him, and he's obviously a physical, tough guy, but I do worry about his length, his frame. I mean, everyone's like, well, he's kind of like Ethan Downs. Man, Ethan Downs is 6'4", 6'4" and a half, nearly 6'5", right? I mean, he's a big frame kid. He was 245 pounds in high school. Shield Knight's 6'2", 225. So he's right. That's Shield Knight's 6'2", 225. That's what he's listed at. That's probably what he's that's a fair number. I don't think he has the twitch to be an SEC rush end, but I've been wrong before. So, Jason, I'm going to take a name, and I'm a little worried about where Trene Washington fits in. Okay. I think is he a big receiver? Is he a flexed out tight end? Where does he fit in that whole mix? Because we already have Ivan Carrion, who's a year ahead of him, sort of in that mold. So, do you have a player you're a little like, I'm not quite sure where they are, where they're gonna be?
No, I mean, I kind of think it's a light class, and I think that they have done it. Yeah, maybe the Shield Knight too. I'm not gonna pick in at the class a whole lot. I just don't feel like I should probably. Because I think you got a lot of guys in there that are home run hitters that could immediately make an impact. It's probably a little underrated. It's a small class, which is why the rankings where it is. The people that are going to be out there freaking out about it, that why are we out at 15th or 17th or whatever it ends up being. I don't know. I think that you've got some development guys in there, but I think a guy like Torrey Blaylock could make an immediate impact too. So overall, yeah, I guess if I had a concern, it would be that we didn't go very deep with the tight end room. I don't know how you would expect that to really happen right now. You know what I mean? I know people are saying that they're going to retain the entire staff. Are they really though? I mean, I don't really know that it kind of got reiterated today. And I have a hard time believing that Joe John's coming back. And in view of the fact that he's really not doing great with picking guys up, So, yeah, I mean, Trene Washington, I would kind of agree with both of you guys. I guess I would just kind of agree with both of you guys. I don't know where they fit in. But I look at a guy like Torrey Blaylock and I think home run. So I don't know, man. I'm not going to pick at this class, and I'm not the recruiting guru at all when it comes to that stuff, because most of the time I don't even like to really pay that much attention to it. I like to watch film, but I don't get caught up in the hype very much with them.
Yeah, I think some of the. I mean, I'm not. I don't mean to be harsh. I do think that some of the guys they lost were guys I was a little worried about. Kamori Moore. I love Floyd Picard's potential, but the floor there was significant, right? What he needed to do, where he needs to do to get to develop, and he's had a kind of a weird year at Miami. So, so Jason, obviously, you're a big fan of CJ Nixon. I think we all are. Do you think he should be moved to tight end? That Chavis has potentially fixed our tight end problems.
Listen, man. I mean, maybe that's what Coach Chavis is doing. He's moonlighting as the tight end recruiter. I don't know. It's look, CJ Nixon. You think about him; he's a hell of a basketball player, right? The guy's a hell of a basketball player. And he talked about wanting to play basketball here at this level, even. And I don't know how that's going to end up working out. Maybe not. But man, when you look at guys that can do everything and that play a lot of sports, those are usually your superstars. So wherever they end up, it's like they could play wherever, And I mean, we're about to watch a guy from Colorado win the Heisman because he plays multiple positions and he plays both of them equally well. I think that he's as good a receiver, Travis Hunter, as he is a corner, and a lot of people think he's better.
Yep. But who was the Ohio State guy that was like that?
Are you talking about the safety that came in from Bama?
No. The kickoff back in the day, the kickoff return specialist who had all that speed.
Ted Ginn.
Ted Ginn, yeah, he was sort of a cornerback, wide receiver combo, special teams guy. So, Chris, would you rob Peter to pay Paul? Would you move Nixon to tight end if he comes on campus and the tight end position's still looking a little weak and you move him over there and he just looks great, or are you going to keep him at rush end?
Keep him at rush end for now. What I would like to see, I think you could try it early on, maybe, and just let the kid get here, go through winter workouts, early spring, maybe give him a look or two just to see, let him run over there with that. When they're splitting up into their groups or whatever, let him kind of spend time with both and just look at it. But no, I think right now, what you do is, there's how should I say this? There's a couple of day one priorities and a couple of day two priorities, right? And for Arbuckle. And what I would say a day two priority for me would be we got to figure out what's going on with Devon Mitchell, right? Got to figure out what's going on there. I talked to my uncle last night.
Good call.
And he said, hey, I think people need to understand Barrett Sharp he's a good player. He has a lot of potential. It's just the fact that he needed to catch up and actually understand how to play at this level. So I'm gonna try to give him the benefit of the doubt just because Unc said it. But I think that your first thing is, hey, you're on the day two priority. You're sitting there saying, I got to get this kid on the field, Devon Mitchell. Your second is I have to put Barrett Sharp in positions that he's going to win in. I'm not running anything underneath for him. He's not Brock Bowers. He's Barrett Sharp, right? So I think that's where you start. And then also I think that you're looking down the line just to say who's going to be healthy out of the rest of this group. Can I trust you, Caden Helms, or do I need to go to the portal? I think you go get a portal guy. And you don't go get a guy who's just a blocking tight end like the kid that you brought in, Nate Roberts. You go and get a tight end that's a little bit of both this year. But I think and I think there's going to be a couple that's out there. But that's kind of where I'm at with the tight end room. You have two tight ends that are there. You have one that's durable, one that can play, just needs to be put in positions where he can go and react. And just do what he needs to do, opposed to putting him in positions where he's going to have to do split blocks and all the rest of that. Then you have another one over there who's probably the most talented out of the room, just got to see the field. right? But I've always been under the impression that once you got this new OC, you may see a new coach come with him, and you probably will definitely see a new quarterback and a new tight end. I thought those were mandatory with this new hire for me at the very least, but that's kind of where I'm at. I wouldn't switch CJ Nixon over there. I don't want him having to split time between sides of the ball, two different sides of the ball. I want him to come in focus at what he's more natural at, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily want him to do it. I think if he's not going to be a part of the immediate 2 deep at the edge rush position, I could see you trying to do it. But I'm hearing you, Unc. I'm hearing what you're saying down there. He's not even developing tight ends. So as far as JJF, I don't know that. I would ask this again. I don't know that either of you guys answered the question. Is JJF still really here?
He's going to coach the bowl game, but the coaches convention is in like mid-January. That's when he'll find a new job. He won't be on the Oklahoma coaching staff February 1st.
Real quick, let's talk about Andy Bass in there. Guys, y'all realize he was a preferred walk-on. He had scholarships to go other places and play football right away.
Air Force in Syracuse, right?
Yeah, he was. And so let's not get the impression that he's not a good player. He got hurt. He blew his knee apart in the state championship game last year. And I heard talk by middle of the season that was saying he was ready to come back already. We're talking 5-6 months removed from, or 8-9 months removed from when that happened last year, that they were talking about that. Andy Bass is going to be fine. Whatever he ends up doing, I have a feeling that's a guy that's going to end up being, whenever it is, he's going to be a difference maker. They don't need to get rid of that kid.
No. So who is your realistic prospect you wish that OU had landed? And by realistic, I'm going to give you visited OU, really talked about OU, but we just didn't land him. Don't give me a name who was never on campus, never once mentioned OU. So I can start there if you guys need a little time to think about that.
Are we just gonna? Cortez Mills would be obviously
pretty simple for me. Yeah, it'd be Cortez.
Yeah, it'd be Cortez Mills. I think that would probably be the one.
I would go in a different direction. So I would say the Elijah Melendez linebacker kid from Miami. He went to Auburn. If you saw his film and you saw he visited OU, officially visited OU. We were in his top 3. We could add other wide receivers. I like Cortez Mills, but if I could have added another head-hunting, elite-looking middle linebacker like Elijah Melendez to this class, allowing me to maybe play Marcus James, to allow the Marcus James transition to rush end, and you have that guy in the middle to go with James Nesta, whatever Taylor Heim and Owen Heineke maybe turn into a will linebacker. If you give me a hard-hitting, serious middle linebacker prospect to be put into this linebacker room for us to develop, that to me is a prospect I wish OU had closed the loop on. I mean, the kid's a beast. He's going to be very, very. He's going to be at Auburn. Who knows how Auburn will develop the guys, because their class is ridiculous because they're just throwing NIL money around like drunken sailors. But that's the guy I wish OU had gotten. I would have liked to have set a defensive end, maybe somebody like Smith Arogbo, who ended up choosing Texas, but I haven't really seen Smith's senior film to have an idea of what he actually has done this year, because kind of lost track of him once he chose Texas.
Would you say the Caden Burns kid that's still signed with Baylor?
But the Melendez kid, I think, is much better. He's got a bigger frame. He's just a bigger, more athletic kid. Just from that perspective. So I'm gonna answer just another quick question here from somebody who's been posting questions. Chris, why are we not recruiting in Georgia, Colorado, and Alabama does? Well, there's this small thing that Coach Prime used to be a Hall of Fame cornerback for the Falcons, which gives him a certain level of cachet and access in the Atlanta market.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he wants. And if OU was where Alabama geographically was, if we could move the two states, then OU and have like 7 national championships over the last 12 years, then we could recruit Georgia the way Alabama does. It's a mystery to me that we haven't been able to make a bigger dent. I think the number one reason why Brent brought Ted Roof was supposed to open Georgia up for us. Ted Roof has connections all in Gwinnett, Buford, Parkview, all of the big high schools up there in Gwinnett. And it never translated. So I think that's one of the reasons why Brent moved off the Ted Roof relationship as quickly as he did. I think Ted Roof was supposed to be Brent's Bobby Jack Wright. And for those that don't know, when Stoops first took over, he brought along an older coach, Bobby Jack Wright, who was actually not working at the time, who had all these connections in East Texas and brought OU a number of players, and was able to really boost OU's recruiting, like Jimmy Wilkerson, players like that. That's what Bobby Jack Wright was able to bring to OU. And I think Brent thought Ted Roof would open up Georgia for him, and it just didn't work. We were getting visits, but we weren't landing any of the guys. We didn't land Caden McDonald, the big defensive tackle, who ended up at Ohio State. And we didn't get visits. We got some visits, but we didn't end up getting official visits from a lot of the D-line guys that Todd Bates thought that we would have access to. It's just not worked out. Georgia is an incredible market for talent, but everybody's there. So you got to be winning. You got to be winning. You got to be in the playoffs to get through the door. Otherwise, you're competing against Georgia, Bama, Florida, Clemson, South Carolina now, Tennessee. It's incredibly tough to make a dent in the Georgia market without a connection. None of our coaches are really have connections there any longer. Todd Bates is the only one that really has those connections. Chavis has some North Carolina connections. That didn't pay off this year with a defensive tackle. They were trying to recruit Isaiah Campbell from North Carolina. He's going to end up at Tennessee, I think. So it's been tough from that perspective. You can only apply so much energy in Georgia recruiting without it paying off. But why is Dion able to do it? Because of everybody in Atlanta remembers him as prime time and Coach Sanders and the Dirty Birds and his time with the Falcons. So he has that cachet in that market, and it's never going away. And with what Travis Hunter's done, it's only going to increase.
Sure, and I would also say, guys, Oklahoma has not, when do you ever know them being huge in Georgia? Texas is there still. You're still going to continue getting those guys. I think that this is probably one of those years that you need to see something on the field anyway, just for the recruiting side of it too, though. You know what I mean? When you've had a season like this, I mean, and mind you, Colorado's playing in freaking the Big 12. It's a little different, but yeah, but I would tell you that market could open right back up. You go out and win 10 wins and make a run in the playoff.
Well, and also let's just say hopefully 2 years from now, David Stone and Jaden Jackson are both going in the first round in the NFL draft, right? That makes a massive, massive difference. If you have those guys, we did get Nate Hibble out of Georgia for Sooner in Texas.
Guy.
Yep. And really it's been more of a long-term golf addition for OU. But and Nate Hibble has a restaurant franchising business in Atlanta. That's what Nate Hibble's moved into. So I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think if you win, now OU could pick up Deuce Geralds in 2026, the defensive lineman from Georgia. They're in great shape with him. He really wants to be coached by Todd Bates. And I think one player could open things enough where you start to get more. So they got to land that one guy that kind of breaks the ice and says, I can go to Oklahoma, be elite on defense, and be elite in the SEC. Once that, if you can break that open, that will help greatly.
Satterfield.
Okay, Jackson Arnold did grow up in Georgia. Okay, sure. But he didn't help us land. He knew Caden McDonald growing up, and he didn't help us land him. But yeah, so, all right. So guys, where we've been going about an hour, we've got good comments. I think we've kind of, we're at a nice spot to kind of, we've been doing podcasts for the last couple of days. So I think an hour is about as much as I got in me. So Kchris, do you have a final comment about the recruiting class, a player you love, regardless of whether they're underranked or overranked, just someone that you think, other than a Marion Robinson, that you just love the fact that they're a Sooner?
Look, love the class. That's great and all, but I got one thing to say. Excuse me. I got 2 words for you. Catch. Orange Bloods. Suck it. Okay? You know, and if you don't understand that, as Stone Cold would say, I got a little sign language for you, but we're gonna keep it a little PG tonight, okay? Catch me off of the pod. But no, I would just say this. No, hey, look, you kept the kids that you needed, you kept the kids that you were supposed to get, and you kept the kids that mattered the most to this class. And you went out there and you did what you needed to do to fortify the trenches. So I'm happy about this class. I'm happy about the offensive line, especially. I think you went and got specialty players. You went and got killers, right? You went and got guys that can actually make a difference. So that's the model that we're moving towards. So I'm pleased with the class. I'm pleased with what you went and did, right? I'm hoping that next year, we have the season that we all believe we should have, and maybe we can get back to a bit of normalcy. But maybe this is going to be the new norm around here as well. People, you gotta get ready for it. Gray shirts, whatever the case may be, it's going to be a different world. But all in all, great class. I believe it's a great class. You got guys in here that are going to be difference makers at some point in their careers. I see these guys being here for the long haul, so definitely excited about this class. But this is yet again another this is more than a foundation. This was giving life to what you did last year in that class.
Depth. This is adding depth and getting ready to compete at the next level, right? I agree with you on that. So I'd feel the same way about moving forward. I like this class. I know it was small. I'm not looking at the ranking as much as, we know what they've done in the last 3 cycles that they've been in the top 10. And so we've been talking about it, that the floor had been raised. The floor has been raised here. And that's everywhere. So I feel like you look at this, you're getting a bunch of guys that some of them may be ready to go right away, but also I don't think that you necessarily have to expect them to go right away, because the truth be told, you've got some guys that have been being developed already in the last few classes that are probably ready to go. So, and this is what you have to have. You need to have those 2 deep guys. And so I'm excited about where they're headed moving forward still. As I said a few minutes ago, I'm not as worried about this football program and where it's headed as a lot of people are. I don't think it is quite as dire, because of the fact that you have so many young guys that are, if you just have a competent scheme on offense, I think we're going to be okay. And so I'm ready for it. And I love that you're seeing a lot more. They're being selective, but I still think that we probably have a lot of excited moments coming up here in the next few weeks when they start hitting on some of these portal grabs.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys, everybody. My final comments are I'm going to mention one guy who I think was pretty special for OU to grab. I think Trent Wilson is underappreciated in the class. I think he is just below the David Stone tier at defensive tackle. He's had a great senior year. 13 tackles for loss, 7 sacks from the defensive tackle position, which is not not easy. They plays really good competition in that Maryland, D.C. area that he's from.
Yeah.
And again,
was saying that he looked like he was 40 yesterday. Who was it that said that?
That was Brent. Well, he does. I mean, he's not. He doesn't quite have the Samaje Perine beard of a 40-year-old man, or it was Samaje who was always. I remember Bob thinking Samaje was a recruit's parent when he first met him. That was the classic Bob comment. But I think Trent Wilson was a huge pickup. I think he's like the best. Yeah. I'd love Justice Terry. Bagman saying, mentioning Justice Terry. I think Justice Terry and Elijah Griffin are the impact D linemen in this class, and Wilson's just a minor tier below that. I think that was a huge addition for OU, for Bates to be able to just go to Maryland, beat Penn State, Michigan, for Trent Wilson, and like everybody else, I think Elijah Thomas is like the next in-state superstar OU wide receiver that we'll eventually be talking about Elijah Thomas in the same sentence as Ryan Broyles and Sterling Shepard. Mm-hmm. And for 26 recruiting, I think Mason James from Norman North is also very close to that territory as well. So,
nuggets, man. You guys are getting nuggets here from Kchris Mason on Sooners360.
If you're on my Patreon, the next 26 for 2026 will be coming out on Friday. Already moving ahead to next year's class. And I appreciate Chris with the K and Jason for coming on my channel and having a little recruiting discussion. Really appreciate you guys being on my home turf for a brief moment for a change of pace. And thanks to everybody. We peaked at about 150 people watching, which I think is kind of great for doing a first live stream, and my first live stream for signing day. Want to make this a tradition moving forward. And thanks everyone. And we're going to go ahead and end the stream, and we'll have more pod content for you guys on both my Patreon site and on the channel about recruiting and signing day.